So can you tell me the difference between this call and Bell BCE dividend? Some investors think that they're the same, meaning that the dividend of Bell is dead. Why do you think so? Well, payout ratio is above 100% for a long time now, and some investors are starting to get the creeps. Dividend investors, bonjour, my name is Mike Yeroux, and I'm the founder of Dividend Stocks Rocks, and I'm also a passionate investor. I have this YouTube channel to help you invest with more conviction so you can enjoy your retirement. And speaking of conviction and retirement, a lot of retirees or income-seeking investors love BCE dividend. We're talking about a blue chip paying a 5% yield, but now conviction is not that strong. A lot of investors fear that we could see a dividend cut coming up. So we'll deep dive into what Bell is doing right now with his dividend, and I'm going to tell you if it's safe or not. But first, what's the impact of a dividend cut? What you see on this graph is H&R REIT dividend cut impact on its stock price. So the problem is you're not only going to lose income, but you're also going to lose value. So the problem is you count on your portfolio to generate a decent income for your retirement, and then there's a dividend cut, so you lose that income, and then you're thinking, well, I'm just going to switch around, sell my shares and buy something else. But the problem is you lose also capital value. So you get to a point where you're losing money, you're losing income, and there's not much you can do. Is it a case for BCE? Well, actually, if you look at the dividend triangle, it's kind of interesting because we see the stock price going up a lot recently, while revenues are not recovering since the pandemic. Earnings are actually going down, but the dividend keeps increasing. And that is pretty much what is bugging a lot of investors, is you're thinking, well, the yield is at 5%, the dividend increases, but the company doesn't seem to go anywhere. So you dig a little further and you find out about the payout ratio. Since March of 2020, when the pandemic hit, the stock payout ratio is through the roof. So we saw over 120, but even 2 years later, we're still at 115%. Which is a lot when you're considering that the company is already paying a high yield, which is usually a red flag telling you, hey, you might want to double check your financial metrics just to make sure that the dividend okay. So you're thinking, okay, so the payout ratio is high, but let's take a look at the cash payout ratio just to make sure that, oh my God, it's even worse. So now we're talking about 325%. That's not going anywhere, right? So basically, if you look at earnings, the company is not able to afford its dividend. If you look at their free cash flow, the company is not able to pay its dividend. So what's happening with this case? First reflex that you have to do in that point, this is definitely a red flag. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into the company's website and dig a little further. Obviously, if you had been a member at Dividend Stocks Rock, we would have told you already the answer, but let's continue to dig in and see what the website says. So when you look at the most recent investors presentation, they're going to talk about dividend growth. They announced that 5.1% dividend increase for 2022. Again, not making any sense. The payout ratio target is between 65 to 75%. We've seen that they're quite higher than that, but management says, hey, don't worry, for 2022, free cash flow is going to cover the dividend paid. Again, quite interesting. So let's go a little bit further. If you keep digging into the investors presentation, you will see the free cash flow outlook. At this point in 2022, they expect to generate between 3 to 3.3 billion. I've looked at the dividend paid in dollars, and it sum up to $3.25 billion in 2021. That figure will be increased by 5% in 2022. So therefore, we're pretty much going to reach a 100%, maybe slightly over 100% cash payout ratio. Good news here. Liquidity in the bank account, 3.4 billion. So basically, the entire year is covered just with the liquidity that BCE has in their portfolio. But now, As an investor, when I look at all those numbers, I can see that we're still very close to that 100% payout ratio all the time, and I could be a little bit concerned. So this is where you have to dig even further to understand what's really happening, because management tells you there's no problem. The company also increases dividends, so everything seems great, but when you look at metrics, they don't make sense. And then you finally realize what is happening. So there you go, capital expenditure. When something doesn't make sense, you have to go back to the basic. What Bell is doing? Well, Bell is a media and wireline wireless business. What's happening in the wireless industry? Well, in Canada, you have three players. You have Rogers, TELUS, and Bell. All of them, what they do right now is they invest massively in their network. The expansion of 5G is super important for them, because if they can offer 5G technology everywhere, they will be able to increase your smartphone bills and then generate tons of cash flow. So this is exactly what Bell is doing right now. They're investing massively. You can see that the CAPEX has never been that high right now, and this explains why payout ratios are through the roof. So in reality, they're not just using that money, that free cash flow, to pay the dividend, but they're also going to use some debt to finance their investment in 5G and use the money in their bank account to pay the dividend. So basically what I have to tell you here is Bell's dividend is safe. It's going to continue to increase by 4 or 5% pretty much every year. And you'll see the payout ratios going back to normal once this important phase of CAPEX is over. Understand the business model is key here. Understand the metric is great because it pushes you to go do a little bit more investigation, but in the end, you need to go to the basic. You need to understand what you have in your portfolio and why you hold it, and you'll come to the same conclusion as me. Bell's dividend is safe. You can sleep tight. I do still prefer TELUS, but that's another story. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have learned something about the payout ratio, give me a thumbs up. Follow the channel, subscribe to the channel to make sure that you don't miss next video, where I'm going to tell you how Microsoft is currently dirt cheap. So until then, don't forget to stay invested.